Welcome back to Recipes Kept, part of the Story Keeper, where I share recipes from old recipe tins that I find at estate sales that are sent in to me, or like today from my own grandmother. I'm going to show you how to make her banana bread. I don't have too many memories of my grandma making banana bread. I think she made it a couple of times. As with many old recipes, there are absolutely no instructions on this card, so we're gonna figure it out together. I'll put a link to the full recipe in the description so that you can make it along with me. Hopefully we figure out the right way to bake this banana bread together. Let's talk about the bananas that we need for this recipe. As with any banana bread, you need to use bananas that are very, very ripe. If they're brown, they're spotty, they're good to go. This means that the sugars have developed inside of the banana and they're also easier to mash. If you try to use bananas that are too green or honestly even too yellow, it's not going to turn out very well. It's going to taste off, and you'll also have a hard time mashing them and they won't integrate well into the banana bread. And see, despite being very, very dark on the outside, they're perfectly fine on the inside. All right, so I went ahead and pre-measured all of our ingredients so we can get this baking. I've got our sugar, an egg, butter, the bananas we still need to mash. In here in this sifter is the flour, the baking soda, baking powder, and a bit of salt, so all of our dry ingredients. Now, like I said, there aren't really instructions on this card as far as, you know, what order to bake things in. Luckily, my grandma did put the temperature that you need to bake things at and for how long and what size of a pan, or what size pan that she would use. So I've preheated the oven to 350 degrees per the instructions. And she uses a regular size baking pan for bread. So I've got my loaf tin here. We'll prepare that a little bit later. I personally don't use parchment paper. We'll see how that turns out. I like to use just flour and butter. And she says to bake it for 50 to 60 minutes. She also says if you want to, you can add chopped nuts. I do remember her using chopped walnuts quite a lot. You could probably also use pecans or almonds. My stepdad is coming over tomorrow, who will probably eat some of this bread. He's allergic to nuts, so I'm not going to use any, and I don't particularly care for nuts and banana bread anyway. So we'll leave those out. There's also a note that just says lemon juice. I don't know where you would add that or why, so I'm not going to, but you can if you want. So like I said, no real instructions, but based on other banana bread recipes that I've made, you would typically cream together the sugar with the butter, which is room temperature, and then once those are mixed as the start of your wet ingredients, you would add in the egg and then beat it until it's combined. And then you would add that to your dry ingredients, and then you would add the mashed bananas. So that's the order of things that I'm gonna follow. Now, you will probably notice that despite how much baking I do, I don't have my KitchenAid mixer out right now. God, I love my KitchenAid. It makes life so easy. But my grandma grew up without one, and she never had one when I was a kid either. So I'm not gonna use one. I'm gonna get my arm day in. We are spoiled. All right, I will get these creamed together, and then I will see you back here when it is time to sift all the dry together. Yes, I know that is more than room temperature. I wasn't planning to do this today. Don't at me in the comments. Okay, so we're gonna call this cream together. We're gonna break our egg in here. I try to follow the general rule of thumb that you break your egg into a separate bowl, just in case there's anything icky in there. I have had a few times where I've gotten, you know, a piece of shell or a blood spot or things like that in there. Should have broken this into a different colored bowl, but look at that beautiful yolk. It's so orange. I swear it's the yolk, not just the bowl. All right, nothing in there we need to worry about. Go ahead and dump that in. Give it some whiskey business. Okay, so this is our wet bowl, our wet ingredients. We've got our egg, sugar, and butter in here. This is a very soft start to the dough. So it's not even dough, it's a soft start to the batter. So let's go ahead and get our dry ingredients sifted, and then I will see you back here when it's time to combine them. Now you can see this is all combined. The last step for us to do is to smoosh up our bananas. So we'll set our dry ingredients aside and give our bananas the old smash. Okay. Now this definitely is a matter of opinion for how you want your bananas to look appetizing. I personally prefer when banana bread has chunks of banana in it like this, so it's like a rustic mash instead of, you know, running it through a processor or an immersion blender or something like that. I've seen some crazy recipes where you basically make like a banana puree and use that. No thank you, that's not my jam, so I go with this. So now it's time to combine. So we're gonna set aside our bananas, take our dry. Okay, so we've got our dry, we've got our wet. I'm gonna combine the two. Now this is very airy, that's kind of, you know, that's what I want. Is it supposed to look like that? I don't know. I'm sure melting the butter as far as I did was probably not the right call, but hey, it's okay. We're learning together. I will say my grandma, for all the time she did bake, there were many, many times where she did indeed melt the butter in the microwave, so it would probably taste even more like my childhood than I was expecting it to. All right, so now we've got our wet and our dry. Just gently with a spatula. Does anybody else remember when Rachel Ray was really popular and she started calling things spoonulas? That was her thing, right? And that actually happened, right? Spoonula. What a weird time to be alive. All right, so we're gonna combine these. I will say I assume that you probably could use a whisk at this point. Still, I only have the one whisk and I'm too lazy to wash it and it's already in the sink. So we are doing it this way. So it seems very dry to me, and the flour is not getting fully hydrated by the butter, egg, sugar mixture. Now, could that be because the butter was so melted? Yes? So it's very dry. So what we're gonna do is add our bananas into this like partially mixed batter just to see if that helps hydrate it, because the bananas did give off a fair amount of liquid. Yeah, this should help. There we go. Okay, so the bananas are helping to hydrate the flour, which means we're like on the right track. All right, so this is all mixed together in a cohesive batter. Well, as cohesive and hydrated as it's gonna get. So this is about what it looks like. I'm not totally sure how to describe this to you. All of the flour should be hydrated and off the bottom of the bowl, so make sure that you're actually like scooping down into it to make sure that you're getting it all hydrated. And then, let's see, kind of maintains its peaks if you bunch it up, but definitely is gonna like flatten out. So that's about the consistency that you want. So I'm gonna set that aside, we're gonna get our pan ready. This is a standard size bread loaf pan, 8 by 4 by 2.5 is what my grandma says. Not, look, I'm not a math person. I'm not good at guessing measurements, so I'm gonna assume that's what the size is. So what you could do is you could take parchment paper and lay it in here so that it's over the sides, down covering the bottom, up over this side, and then out this way so that you can essentially lift the loaf out. I try to not use parchment paper whenever I can, just because, I mean, once you use it, there's not really another use for it. We do use compostable parchment paper, but if I don't need to use it, I just try not to. So what we're gonna do is butter the entire tin, all the sides, all the bottom, etc., with just some leftover butter that we have from the butter that we used. And then we will sprinkle it generously with flour, which should help the outside of the loaf not stick to the sides. You really want to get everything, like the whole inside of this tin. So we're gonna do that really quick. And I'll show you what it looks like at the end. All right, so now we have this all buttered and floured. It is fully coated edge to edge, corner to corner, on the bottom, etc. Also the outside edge, because this is a messy process, that is not necessary. So now that this is buttered and floured, we are going to put the batter in it. Does it bother anybody else who watches cooking shows on YouTube that they never like scrape down the dishes? Like they never scrape down the bowls when they're adding an ingredient or like putting batter in a pan. It bothers me. The food waste gets to me most days. All right, so now we're gonna take this and just kind of level it out a bit. All right. So this is about as level as it's gonna get. We do not need to tent this with tin foil or anything like that. We're just gonna pop it into the oven, which I would love to show you, but there's not a good way to see into my oven while it's baking. So maybe we'll get a new stove for Christmas. Anyway, we're gonna put this in the oven. I will see you back here when it is ready to take it out. Again, 50 to 60 minutes is what the recipe card says, but I'm gonna check it around 40 to 45 minutes, I think, just because my grandma always had an electric stove. I have a gas stove, so I don't know if that's gonna vary the cooking times. Regardless, I will start checking it with a toothpick or a fork at that time. When it comes out clean, no crumbs or anything, we'll know it's ready to go. Welcome back, here she is. I am very excited about this banana bread. Now I will say it did deflate slightly. I suspect that's probably because of how melted the butter was or something like that. Or maybe it just wasn't all incorporated enough as a batter since I didn't use a mixer. All of the banana breads that I've made before have been with the mixer instead of by hand. So that might have something to do with it too. Now I will say, I did only bake this for 45 minutes instead of the 50 to 60 that the instructions recommended. However, a toothpick in the thickest part over here and in the center came out completely clean, so it is done. One thing to know with banana bread when you're testing it with that toothpick method is that you might get, you know, banana residue on it, so it'll look like it's not done when it actually is. Just test it in a couple of places. If you need to use 2 toothpicks, that's fine too. So now we're gonna let this cool for, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes or so. We'll run a butter knife around the edges, and then we will flip it out onto the wire rack so that it can cool. All right, so now we are going to run a butter knife around the edges. I can already tell it's going to, for sure, come away from the edges pretty easily. I believe that butter and flour trick worked pretty well. It's just the bottom that I'm worried about, so we shall see. So we're gonna turn this out onto the cooling rack so that it can actually cool for about an hour before we cut into it. Maybe. I might eat some of it right away, I'm not gonna lie to you. Oh yeah. All right, so this is what the bottom looks like. These white spots here are just a little bit of excess flour. It's totally fine. It's still very warm, so we're just gonna pop it right there. Okay. That is my grandma's banana bread. It's been about 30 minutes. I can't wait anymore. I want to try this bread, so let's cut into it. Right here is what she looks like. Look at that crumb. It looks so good. It's baked all the way through. Honestly, it's almost a little bit overdone. I might start checking this at like the 35-minute mark just to see, but it's definitely going to be delicious. Let's get some butter on here and give it a taste. All right, here she is in all her buttery glory. I love this recipe so much. It tastes like my childhood, and it reminds me of all the times that my grandma and I used to bake together. We would make chocolate chip cookies and, well, chocolate chip cookies for me and her, and then oatmeal raisin cookies for my grandpa. But this is special. This is wholesome and hearty. I just love it so much. It's so nostalgic for me, and that's why I think it's so important to keep these recipes. The recipes that I can pass down to Alex and share with all of you in case you've ever lost a recipe from your family that you want to have again. Hopefully you can find something similar here. So what would I do differently when I make this again? I will plan ahead better, and I will have the butter be actually room temperature instead of melted. I think that that kind of impacted the way it all came together as a batter. And then I would check it earlier. I would check it at the 35-minute mark. But other than that, it's perfect. I'm very excited. You can catch the full recipe down in the description over at rowanthewriter.com/thestorykeeper. I can't wait to make another recipe for you. This is so good. Let me know if you try this recipe or if you have any questions. I'd be happy to help you out. Thanks for stopping by and subscribing. I appreciate you. Bye.